Hi guys, just not long gone, 4:30 in the EU close. Just going to run through the sort of the main movers from today, and then we'll sort of discuss what could drive the markets tomorrow into the end of the week. Just having a look here at the euro. So this morning we saw a bit of dollar weakness, and you can see here, just sort of once we did break the highs, we continued to push, and we've sort of been supported above that pivot all afternoon. We did have some US data out half one today, but not really too much going on there from initial jobless claims. Pretty much in line on lower tier releases, so not doing too much from that release. The pound, similar sort of picture in the morning. You can see once we broke that high around sort of 10-11, so similar with the euro, that sort of time, you can see we did push on and made a new high, and not long ago we did break that previous resistance level you see here on the futures, 139.17, and have continued to sort of rise, and yesterday's high not too far away from that 140 handle don't really seem too out the question. So that sort of weaker dollar into the morning across most of the currency pairs took place before sort of going sideways when the data came out, and then it's not until just now where we see the pound push higher. The other data release, or the biggest moving data release of the day, came with oil at its unusual time of 4 PM following the bank holiday on Monday. If we switch over to the oil chart here, you can see the story. Looks like a pretty easy one to trade, but as usual it doesn't give that greater opportunity straight away. You can see the algo spike pushed towards the pivot level on the bigger drawdown, and it wasn't until we really broke the pivot where the sort of the cleaner move came. And the high of the day, 64.08, hit it absolutely perfectly to the tick, and since then we've come back down to sort of rest around that pivot level. We had been for, well, sorry, it wasn't the high of the day, the high of the afternoon beforehand. We had been drifting down throughout the morning. S1 finding good support literally just before that 4 o'clock announcement release, and since then you can see pushed higher. Oil as a whole, if I just make this chart just a bit smaller so you can see the sort of the back end of last week and this week in this sort of big consolidation between lower 60s, sort of 63, and the top end towards 65. Going sideways there, so definitely one to keep aware of, keep an eye on if we can push higher or lower, but not too much clear direction over the last few trading days. Another market that is definitely worth keeping an eye on at the moment, and we did talk about this earlier in the day, is US equities, that just have this feeling that there's more interest in the sellers than the buyers. Each time we have this mini sell-off, if you like, it's a lot more aggressive than the way it's been bought back up. You can see here from 230, well, I'll go to 230 in a minute, but I had this trend line drawn on earlier in the day, and I did put it into the chat. I'm just going to remove these circles quickly, and you can see where I had that trend line drawn on. We struggled to get above, and this was around, I think it's 12 or half 12, yeah, 12 o'clock, and it just sort of reminded me of on yesterday, sorry, which was a level I had marked up, similar sort of time, around 12 that you see there, or 12:30. We struggled to push higher and then drifted back down lower, and the cash open was quite a negative one, and similar sort of thing happened here. Drifted lower, cash open came, had a nice sort of break of the low, and then subsequently the pivot broke down as well. Apple all-time high sort of helped support the Nasdaq. S&P, you can see, has literally just come down to yesterday's sort of early afternoon's high, and found support there, and we're already back up towards the pivot. So there's still some buying appetite, albeit not as quickly as when the market does come down. Talk of government shutdown looking likely. McConnell stating that it's likely to happen, plans for shutdown. So definitely worth on that front keeping an ear open. So interesting to see how that sort of pans out towards the close of the session. You can see I mean, obviously on the Tuesday it was quite a bit later, 7:30 into the close was quite a nice upturn. Yesterday it was a bit later, towards 3 o'clock we pushed up, and even into sort of the late evening a nice sort of rally, and it could well be that a similar thing sort of takes place today. In terms of places, if we were to continue to the downside, I like the look of yesterday's lows and today's S1, or even where you can see Tuesday's bottom sort of dipped out for the buyers to come in. Not a bad place here as well. While equities selling off, we didn't really see, the biggest move in sort of safe havens. Gold really been capped twice at the pivot level here, but still trending high. You can see probably worth, if you are sticking around, just to have a bit of a trend line going on from those lows there into the highs as well. See a breakout of that might lead to a further move to the upside. While we were just talking about equities, worth having a look at the FTSE, which with the stronger pound that we saw definitely last night and this morning today, did make a sort of a low for a while. And if I just put this chart on, well, I'll go 240 chart here, you can see, if I draw this line up, pretty strong support area. Let me circle these now. Definitely where people would have looked to have taken profit. Try to draw a rectangle on here actually, 1 second, and it seems that buying the dip is not just in America. So the FTSE, which not long ago did make that all-time high, just finding support on this level here, but definitely worth, with the pound and the FTSE correlation, keeping an eye. If the pound was to strongly push above yesterday's high, it could be that the FTSE is just held off from pushing on to its all-time high for a while there as well. The DAX, nice technical break, if you can use the word nice and the DAX together, but pushing higher above yesterday's sort of highs here that you see, and then straight to R1 in pretty quick fashion. R1, you had a sort of bit of a break, but what had been a good technical level in the past, you can see just held nicely, and we came back down, then found support on what was the low of the day. And I did talk about in the briefing this morning how I wouldn't have looked to get in at the pivot, rather looking more at the lows of the day, and that's where we did find support rather than the pivot. So it's almost like the chop around the pivot this morning, completely disregarded, find support on our natural market level, and since then we've rallied higher before sort of consolidating into that EU close. Following the interest rate decision in Canada, where you can see it was a very tricky one to trade. I'm not sure if many people would have got involved in that sort of dovish hike, if you like. Seen the lows of the day hold just recently, becoming a bit stronger to the Canadian dollar side with the increase in oil, but holding for now. But if we were to draw a line exactly where we are trading now and go to 1:30, 3 o'clock, where the release came out yesterday, we're pretty much exactly there. So not too much going on in terms of that. And as with actually a few of the dollar pairs, other than maybe with pound, what we saw, we are sort of in this consolidation period, and it could be leading on to tomorrow, where we could see a breakout of any ranges if the data was way out of line. Retail sales 9:30 from the UK, as you can see, at its usual slot of 9:30 into the afternoon, sort of a bit of a quiet period between that 9:30 and 3 o'clock. But you've got Michigan sentiment preliminary reading from January coming out at 3 into the close of the week. Could be sort of a quiet finish, but of course with talks of the shutdown and whatnot, it could be one to keep an eye on for the equity markets. A couple of speakers as well, as you can see down here, a couple of Fed speakers, well, 3 Fed speakers to take note of. But I hope you all have a good evening, and I'll catch you in the chat tomorrow, or any questions, obviously chuck them in now.